Hello everyone. Today's book is called Katie's Cabbage, and it is written by Katie Stagliano and Michelle Martin. It's illustrated by Karen Hyde, and this book is a true story. In fact, the author is the Katie in the book. So let's see what this book is all about. I sat at my desk, eagerly awaiting the bell announcing the end of school for my third grade class. Ring! We all jumped out of our seats and ran toward the door. Remember to grab a cabbage seedling on your way out, and remember to use plenty of TLC, said Mrs. Andrews as we started to leave the classroom. Dozens of cabbage seedlings, nestled in black plastic trays, sat near the door. I spotted a small one in the corner with 3 tiny green leaves, the perfect seedling. I gently picked it up and headed out to my mom and John Michael, my 4-year-old brother, ready to go home. As my mom's car pulled into our driveway, I grabbed my backpack and hopped out of the car with today's math lesson fresh in my mind. John Michael followed, carrying the seedling, which he placed on the kitchen counter. I sat down at the table with a bag of pretzels, ready to tackle my homework. The first math problem mentioned gardening, which reminded me of my seedling. John Michael, let's go plant my cabbage seedling, I said. Grabbing the seedling off the counter, I ran into the garage to collect 2 shovels and some gardening gloves. I searched the backyard for a good home for my seedling. Under the palm tree was too shady. By the fence got too much sun. The beds with the gardenias and roses in them were too crowded. Then I spotted just the right place. It was perfect. My brother and I dug a hole. I pulled the tender seedling from the pot. Wait, I cried. We almost forgot to use TLC. What's TLC? Asked John Michael, confused. We have to treat the seedling with tender, loving care. John Michael nodded, and we carefully dug until the hole was twice the size of the cabbage plant. We then eased the plant into the earth and filled in the rest of the hole with dirt. My seedling had a new home. I high-fived John Michael, and we went back inside. Mom handed me a watering can and said, "Don't forget to water, sweetie, every day after school." I checked on my cabbage, pulled out weeds that would steal its nutrients, and watered the plant to help it grow. And grow it did. I was amazed at how fast it was, soon as big as a soccer ball and getting bigger by the day. Whenever my friends came over to play, they checked out just how big my cabbage had grown. Soon the whole neighborhood began to notice. "Hey, Katie, what are you feeding that thing? It's almost the size of your brother," said Miss Rose from next door. Dr. Shepard agreed. "Katie, that is one beautiful cabbage." But Mr. Gable from down the street had some bad news. "Katie, some deer ate the shrubs in my yard yesterday. If I were you, I'd keep an eye out." Would deer eat my cabbage? If there was nothing to protect it? I called my grandfather, Opa, who is an excellent carpenter. He would know just how to keep my cabbage safe. "Opa, Mr. Gable saw deer in his yard, and I'm worried they'll eat my cabbage." He promised to help. "Tomorrow after school, I'll come over and we'll build a cabbage cage." "Deal," I answered. True to his word, Opa came over the next day with his tools, and we built the cage. We put wooden posts in the ground, hammered nails into boards in the shape of a large box, and wrapped it in chicken wire. Hours later, when we were finished, the cage looked, well, interesting. But I didn't care about looks because I knew it would protect my cabbage from becoming a deer snack. One night as my family sat down to dinner, my dad asked us if we knew how lucky we were to be able to sit down to a good meal every night. Some families go to bed hungry because they don't have enough to eat. "Really?" I asked. I'd never thought about this before. Yeah, some people do not have enough money to buy food. All over the world, some kids and adults go to bed hungry, my dad explained. I sat there quietly thinking about this. If kids like me all over the world go to bed with empty bellies, then maybe I could help. I can give my cabbage to families who don't have enough to eat. It made me so happy to think of all the good my cabbage could do. I asked Mom if she would help me find that special home where it would go to do the most good. She smiled and said, "Of course, sweetie." And she did. The next day, Mom called around and found Fields to Families, an organization that gets fresh vegetables from farmers to soup kitchens to feed people who are hungry. Hello, this may sound a little odd, but my daughter Katie grew a large cabbage as a school project, and she would like to donate it to people to help feed families in need. Can you help me with this? Miss Jackie, the woman on the other end of the phone, said, "I have the perfect home for Katie's cabbage." After school, I asked Mom if she had found a home for my cabbage. "Yes, your cabbage will go to Tri-County Family Ministries to feed families who are in need." This was great news, but I had so many questions. Where is Tri-County? How many people would it feed? When can we go there to help? Just a week later, my cabbage was the perfect size to harvest. Gigantic. Together, my family and I went into the backyard, tools in hand. John Michael had a yardstick to measure my cabbage, and my dad had a saw to cut it from its stalk and roots. I had a wheelbarrow to transport my cabbage to our car, and my mom had her camera to capture the exciting moment. I thought back to my cabbage as a tiny seedling. Now look how big it had grown with TLC. It was amazing. John Michael held the yardstick up to the cabbage as Mom took the picture. Then I gave my cabbage a hug just before Dad sawed the giant ball of green leaves from the ground. John Michael and I tried with all our might to lift the cabbage, but it wouldn't budge. Dad had to help us lug it to the wheelbarrow. When we got it to the driveway, the three of us lifted the cabbage into the back of our SUV, and we all hopped into the car, eager to donate my cabbage. As we pulled into the Tri-County Family Ministries parking lot, I stared at the long line of people that wrapped from the parking lot to the front door of the small house. The line seemed endless. All those families just like mine, I thought. As we passed the line, I heard, "Wow, look at that amazing cabbage. Is that for us? That sure will be delicious." Miss Sue, the director of Tri-County, walked out, her arms open to greet us. "What a beautiful cabbage, Katie. Come on in, let me show you the kitchen." We followed Miss Sue into the small kitchen with Dad now carrying the cabbage in his arms. We saw shelves filled with pastries and loaves of bread. Men and women carried large pots and trays of hot food. A young man pushed a cart of chocolate cakes. In another area, women wearing plastic gloves and hairnets served rice, chicken, salad, and beans with metal spoons and tongs. Other adults passed food and drinks to the waiting guests at windows. Outside, behind the kitchen, were picnic benches packed with people eating their meals. When Miss Sue introduced me to the kitchen staff, one of the women suggested we weigh the cabbage. Dad placed the cabbage down on a scale in the storage room. The number blinked a couple of times before stopping. "Young lady, you've grown yourself a 40-pound cabbage. That's quite an accomplishment," announced the head cook. "What are you going to make with it?" I asked. "I think we're going to pair your cabbage with some ham and rice. We'll have ourselves a nice meal for a whole lot of folks." "That sounds yummy," I replied. Miss Sue invited us to come back later in the week to help serve my cabbage to the guests. Friday could not come fast enough. When I saw the sign for Tri-County from our car window, I said, "We're here!" John Michael and I unbuckled, eager to work. Miss Sue greeted us outside. "I'm so excited you're here. Come in and we'll get you all ready to serve." She handed me a large black apron that went down to my knees, plastic gloves, and a large serving spoon. I sat on a wooden stool next to three women who were also serving. The cook set a large metal dish in front of me. When he lifted the lid, steam billowed out, and when the steam cleared, I saw my cabbage transformed. No longer the giant ball of green leaves that had to be sawed down like a tree. My cabbage was now ready to be served. One of the women said, "Wow, that sure looks delicious." The women scooped rice and ham into a plate and passed it to me. I added a heaping portion of cabbage. After me, others added salad, a roll, a piece of cake, and a drink, and then the meal was handed off to a little girl about my age. Hundreds of hungry people followed her, including boys and girls of all ages. Many of the kids stood there, tugging at their parents' shirts or playing rock, paper, scissors to pass the time. 2 little kids even started singing. As they got their meals, they smiled and thanked the volunteers and me, then ate together on the porch. John Michael was helping another volunteer, Doc, pass out the bread and treats over a wooden half door. Since John Michael was too small to see over the half door, he handed the bags to Doc to be passed out. The whole meal lasted about 2 hours. After I helped to serve the last person, Miss Sue came to me with a big smile. "Katie, thank you for your cabbage today." She gave me a warm hug and added, "And thanks for your help too, John Michael." After many more goodbyes, we all piled into the car and headed home. "Wow," I said. "I never knew how many people go to a soup kitchen. It seems like hundreds of people in line. We have to do more to help." "What would you like to do?" Mom asked. "I don't know yet," I sighed. "I want to help people at the soup kitchen get great meals every day, but what can a kid do?" As I wondered about this, an idea started to grow in my imagination, just as the 40-pound cabbage had grown with TLC in our backyard. I could start a garden and give away everything I grow to a soup kitchen. The spot in our backyard where I grew my cabbage, that's where I'll grow even more vegetables for people who are hungry. What a great idea, Mom and Dad agreed. Tomorrow, let's get planting. The next day, we went to the garden supply store. I was so excited about helping to feed all those people in line at Tri-County. "Wow, Katie, look at all the tiny plants," John Michael said, amazed. "There are so many choices. What should we plant?" my dad asked. "How about peppers and tomatoes and eggplant and basil and cucumbers and squash and okra and collards and..." "Oh, slow down, Katie," my mom laughed. "How about we start with a little less?" "Okay, basil, tomatoes, and peppers," I smiled. We gathered all the plants for the garden and filled the cart completely. At home, we unloaded the dirt and plants in the backyard on the very spot where my 40-pound cabbage had grown. John Michael and I laid out the seedlings. Following the instructions on the tiny plant tags, we dug holes and arranged the plants by which ones needed the most sun. 2 hours later, we had turned my cabbage's old home into a huge, beautiful, giving garden. I could then only imagine the boxes of healthy, delicious vegetables this would provide for hungry kids and adults. I could hardly wait. "Wow," John Michael said. "It looks so cool." "I agree," Mom said. "Good job, sweetie. This was a wonderful idea." There's a deer. 3 days later, a note arrived in the mail for me. I was so happy and proud. If one cabbage could feed 275 people, then imagine how many more a whole garden could help. I ran to my parents to show them Miss Sue's note, which said, "Katie, thank you for helping feed 275 people today. Your cabbage was delicious. Love, Sue Hanshaw." I grinned, knowing this was just the beginning. Thanks for listening to the story today. Below this video, you will see a link that Darcy has put there that has a whole bunch of activities that you can do that are around this story. I hope you'll do them and join us again next week. Have a great week. Bye.